Thank you, our Lady Chair, for the evening, for the night, the energetic, the ever-willing Laurel Lizama lead sing. Public Relations Officer of the People's National Movement. My colleagues at the level of the party, Deputy Political Leader, Mrs. Joan Yule Williams, other party officers, Your Worship, the Mayor of San Fernando, thank you very much for hosting us here tonight. My cabinet colleague, the Member of Parliament for San Fernando West, the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, the PNM Standard Bearer for 2020, and once again to represent the people of San Fernando West, Mr. Faris Al-Rowley. Our new standard bearers, young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and very experienced. Very experienced. The constituency of Faizabad, a woman whose every mother can be proud of. Solange D'Souza, Faizabad, the hard-working, the dedicated, ever trustworthy, party faithful, Daniel Duki for Pointe-à-Pitre. And a big man stepping into huge shoes. From the constituency of San Fernando East, the young, the experienced, the well-trained, the well-prepared Brian Manning for San Fernando East. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, as we're presenting candidates, I present the candidate for Dagobah West. Thank you for that welcome and that support in Dagobah West, in Faizabad, in Pointe-à-Pitre, and of course in San Fernando East as we take our evening here. Normally, this hall would be full wall to wall. The last time I was in here, we had about 600 people, and there were as many outside. Tonight we have less than 100 people in this hall because we are a disciplined party and we are disciplined people. We are spaced out as required by the health protocols because we are conducting a general election in a pandemic. A lot of people are beginning to forget what pandemic means. It means that if you are unlucky and if you're careless, you can be infected and you could die. You certainly could get very sick. The world is in a pandemic, and it's during that period that this general election of 2020 is taking place. I thank you all very much for coming out and for supporting our candidates across the country, for walking with them, for talking with the communities, and for standing with the PNM in its 65th year, telling the country, from Charlottesville to Cedros, from Sangre Grande to Carenage, from Carapichaima to Barataria, that PNM is the best choice. Ladies and gentlemen, I need not take much time tonight to go over what we've been going through or what we are in, because you know where we've been since January. There was a period when you were instructed to go home and stay home. The country was locked down. Our borders are still closed. And we are being advised by our health professionals what to do to treat with the invisible killer. There are far-reaching consequences as a result of that development. And most of you might have been paying attention to what's happening outside of Trinidad and Tobago, even as we take what's happening in here for granted. Even as we are being told the tomfoolery that the only place the sun shines is in Trinidad and Tobago, and the weather doesn't kill COVID in Texas and in California and in Australia and other places with the weather, it only kills COVID in Trinidad and Tobago. What a foolish statement. But of course, that is an option. That is an option of the leadership you can have. But thankfully, the PNM was in office when this challenge came our way, and we have not hesitated to place our trust in our people, and you have not hesitated to place your trust in the government that you have elected. Tonight, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, I want to thank this population for standing in line for your family, for your community, and for your nation. And by the vast majority of you, accepting that we got problems to deal with, a particular problem at this time, and that you have allowed the government to guide you to a safe place. So far, so good. I want to thank you for your support. And as we do that, I want to thank all the public officers across the nation who have provided us with guidance and care, particularly our health caregivers in all our hospitals and the support agencies and our security services. We, as a small country, tiny Caribbean island nation, we have done well in looking after ourselves, but the job is not over. The job is not over. We are still exposed to grave danger. It would be a serious mistake to believe that because we have been able to protect ourselves so far, that we are protected and we are now invincible. When I left Port of Spain this morning on my way to Moruga, we were still dealing with the news of a couple of additions to our list of confirmations with COVID. By the time I get home tonight, there are 4 more. 3 that came in traffic, and 1 we haven't identified the location. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still in danger. We closed our borders because it was the most effective way to keep who was in here fairly safe from allowing those who are outside, nationals and non-nationals, from bringing to us an infection that could damage and destroy us. We closed our border. All over the world, countries have closed their borders. Throughout the Caribbean, virtually every border is closed. In Central America, in Africa, borders are closed and all kinds of different terms and conditions are there. The only place in the world that the border closure has been deemed to be worse than slavery is in Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight, I want to say to Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissessam and all her supporters, in this Trinidad and Tobago, where we all call home, we've come from different places under different circumstances. I don't know if she knows. Maybe I can give her the benefit of the doubt that she doesn't know. Because for those of us who are descendants of slaves, especially if you have black skin like me, or blank skin as you call it, if you don't know what slavery means to a black person, you've been advised to get a book and read it. I'll give you a better piece of advice. Go to Washington. There's a museum of Black American history. Take 3 days and go through that museum, and you'll never be the same again. And you'll never talk a stupidness like that again. Slavery is an environment in which people are plucked from where they belong, taken to another place under the most inhumane conditions. Children are ripped from their parents, abused by others in the worst possible way. Hardly can one find another condition where man has been so inhumane to other men. In fact, up until recently, a black African was only a portion of a man in a nation close to us. And some still behave as though you were a portion. As Prime Minister of this country, I listened to and I watched the opposition leader call me an Oreo. I watch all the other voices in the country stay silent. But if I had made a similar statement about an East Indian Prime Minister of equivalent offense, this whole country would have condemned me. But I ask for no apology. I just say to you, Mr. Prasad Bisesa, my grandfather, long before the nation celebrated Emancipation Day on August 1st, my grandfather, conscious and cognizant of our history, he worked every day of his working life, but he never worked on the 1st of August. 1st of August was the only day that he would stay home. He would call it August Day. And on that day, he never worked until the nation accepted August 1st as Emancipation Day. Such an offense, such an insult. So you being outside the border, and you equate that with all the horrors of slavery. I know of no other country where any person has laid that charge against its government for protecting its people. But of course, we leave that for the moment. We look ahead, because more confirmations or not, we have to deal with the months and years ahead, and we have to make sure that we have a living. We stay alive and protect our livelihood. You would have heard us saying that we'll take the opportunity of the disruption caused by COVID to drastically renovate the country's governance systems. That is a commitment that you will see in our manifesto that's going to be out in the next few days. By the end of the week, we shall have a documented form of our commitments. We have in our hands a document which was prepared for us by a 22-man team consulting with a 100-man team in the country to figure out what do we do when this COVID allows us to come back out from the lockdown. Well, we'll come back out. Our industries are working. Our public service is back out. The private sector is out there. And we are taking careful, ginger steps, hoping that we'll escape the horrors that many people are going through now. But we can only do that if we are disciplined people. I was in the Southland here a couple of days ago, and I was looking around, and I was listening. And I'm amazed at the copycat arrangement between some people in this country who are copying other people's failures from outside. In the Southland, I must tell you, South people, you are not immune to the threats of the East-West corridor and of COVID. I see very few people in the South wearing masks. I see the leader of the opposition who is from the South. I've never seen her with a mask on, to indicate to the population that this is what the country should be doing, and by your own leadership, demonstrate to them that this is what we should be doing. No. You copy what's going on in North America, where today, if you're wearing a mask in America, you're a Democrat. And if you're not wearing one, you're a Republican. Because people see that as their political entry and milestone. I appeal to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. COVID-19 is no respecter of political persuasion. And if it gets the better of us in this country, it's going to deal with all of us with equal injustice. So tonight I call on the opposition leader to stop undermining the government's advice to the population by being responsible and not campaigning with people, all of whom walk away with open faces, not even pretending to want to put on a mask. And the leader walks out. And then you have one called Fuad Khan, a former minister of health, who is walking in front of a crowd of yellow cheeseheads and telling them there's no COVID in this country. And the government's instructions to you is to oppress the country. The government is oppressing the people. Those are the alternative leaders of this country. Those are the alternative leaders. Suppose, God forbid, they win the election on the 10th of August, and they take the position that there's no COVID threat, and there's no COVID in the country, and you open the borders because you don't want to be a slave master, sunshine. And that sunshine kills COVID, how long will it take us? By the end of August, we will be in deep doo-doo in this country, because that is what you get when you behave so foolishly, and there's proof all around the world. A certain kind of leader who dismissed the science and put politics in front of common sense. That's what they're offering you. And if you think that is a joke, you go out there on August 10th and put them in office and see what you get. But they have no problem in undermining this country, in damaging this country's image. One of the assignments I had very early when I became Prime Minister of this country was to get on a plane with a delegation and go to Jamaica and sit down in front of 15 Jamaican cabinet ministers, leading an angry country that was preparing to boycott Trinidad and Tobago's manufactured products, which would have created huge unemployment in Trinidad and Tobago, because if we couldn't sell to Jamaica, we couldn't produce in Trinidad and Tobago because we had no buyers up there. And I had to sit there for 3.5 hours, literally, conducting business by trying to be as nice as I am, as friendly as I am, because fortunately for Trinidad and Tobago, a significant number of those ministers were people that I had relationships with before, because the outgoing Prime Minister had behaved so foolishly to Jamaica that it angered the Jamaicans and caused them to organize a boycott against Trinidad and Tobago. You all forget that? Huh? You forget that? I had to do that. Talking about companies, somebody was talking a while ago there about, the Attorney General was talking about getting work done. When I became Prime Minister of this country and I went to that building in St. Clair, on the desk was about a ton of files dating back 2 years that I had to sign, approve. I have to approve things that took place 2 years before, that took place a year before. I had to approve it because it requires a prime ministerial approval. Doesn't say which prime minister. A prime minister had to sign for it. It was all there. Work left to be done by me that she left because she wasn't going to work when the day come. Wasn't dealing with the files from the public service. People to be paid. People who acted, the acting could not be paid because all the files were there requiring the prime minister to sign off on it. That is what we experience. That's what they're offering you again. But I tell you something else they're offering you too. I woke up this morning to hear Rudal Munilal carrying on about Trinidad and Tobago. It's like Venezuela. And the Prime Minister taking lessons from Maduro because we instructed the police to lock up opposition members before nomination day and they don't have any evidence and la 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 la. I understand the Commissioner of Police today responded to that, to tell the country to leave that rubbish talk where it is. It is simply people with questions to answer who are trying to influence the investigation. That is the Commissioner's explanation to that. But I noticed all the challenge that was being laid at the development of this old talk, none of them has taken issue with the fact that there are police documents that speak about, in fact, the Commissioner today speaks about $1 billion of public money which is now being investigated by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. $1 billion in 2 situations. One is called Life Sport, and the other one is called EMBD. Life Sport is where they started out. They had a program to spend $6 million one holiday, one August month. That became $400 million or more. And the EMBD one is 10 roads that they have no names in the cane fields in Caroni. So in order to award the contracts, they call C1, C2, C3, C4 to C10. No name roads. But in 1 month, to spend money on those no-name traces in Caroni. You, the taxpayer, got ripped off for $549 million. That is not what they're taking issue with, you know. What they're taking issue with is that somebody told you that that is happening. The Guardian told you that that is happening. I told you what the Guardian told you. He vexed because the Guardian told me and I told you. So you're not supposed to know. Tonight the AG told you that we have interest in the American courts to the tune of $120 million US. And the government before us made sure that the matter wasn't pursued. So when I tell you they want to come back into government to make sure they run interference of all of those things, there's the proof. There's the proof. They did it before. You saw Section 34? They did it. And now, our manifesto that's coming out is talking about how we modernize the country, how we treat with record keeping to bring about efficiency. We want to go away from paper files, file in a drawer, file dog-eared under a desk. Person didn't come up to work, so only one person knows where the file is. And once the file leaves this room and it goes to the next room, it's lost. And if you have to do business with the state, that you always have to do, you have to go and find lines to line up in. And when you spend days lining up and you get to the head of the line, it's lunchtime, they close it because it's time to go for lunch. All of those things we are saying we are putting behind us. Out of this COVID will come and modernize Trinidad and Tobago. We're saying that we had embarked upon that before and was moving very slowly, but we intend to accelerate it with warp speed. As soon as the election is over, we go on to that because there is going to be a Ministry of Technology and Records in Trinidad and Tobago, and that ministry will have the responsibility to bring about that modernization because we are taking you from those files and those drawers onto your phone. Taking you onto your phone. You pay your bills on the phone already, you bank on the phone, and you conduct government business on the phone. And the benefit you get from that is that every transaction is a record and it's easily accessible. It's time-saving, and you can store much more data everywhere, and you become far more efficient. Half of the criminal conduct in this country will disappear. That's right. Whether it's in the hospital, in the licensing office, in the Ministry of Health, it will disappear because all governmental activity will have an easily accessible record. Let me remind you all, because it's election time now. When it was happening, you all didn't. It's election time. Let me remind you now. Remember WASA? Remember when we came into office and we indicated early that we are going to go after white-collar criminal conduct in this country? What was the result? Fire. Just so. Just so. In the kitchen in Wassa. In the wood pile in Wassa. Fire in the records office in Wassa. And when the fire service went and put it out, the fire blazed up again, same place. 2 fires they had in Wassa. Burning the records, burning the paper. Once we go digital, you don't have that access. Don't have it. Because data can be stored well away from where the activity is taking place. And if you burn one, there are a million to burn. Immediately you protect yourself from that. I keep telling you, in the hospitals, immediately you get better service and you get better records. It's going to modernize this country. It's going to save money. It's going to create new jobs. A lot of those young people who are qualified in the university and in the OJT program now, and those who can't get jobs, they would be needed and required to work this new system because that is what they've been trained in. That is what they know, and it would be their job to take us into the new age. It was not by accident that the Attorney General's office was one of the first government departments to be digitized. And if he had time tonight, he could tell you how much more efficient that place has become. And now we can look forward to justice on time, speedier justice, because an efficient judiciary department will be in Trinidad and Tobago dispensing justice on time. And of course, to do that, to make that work and to give us those benefits, you created new jobs, good jobs, permanent jobs, because those people are required to keep the system going. And how many people have been employed? As a matter of fact, I've been saying to him, every time he comes to the cabinet note, I ask him, what is going on in the judiciary? They seem to be exploding because they need more and more and more. But what they're doing is taking us from the dark age into the modern age. The cabinet that we found, when we got there in 2015, cabinet papers were still coming to cabinet members in a big black box almost as big as that speaker, weighing 30, 40 pounds of paper. With the same approach to modernizing the country, every minister now has an iPad. And on that iPad, the cabinet papers comes electronically. No more box and paper. No more driver to carry one to Caroni and one to Pinchestone and one to Tobago. You get it, and wherever you are, on the plane, in your living room, in your bedroom, you can be going through your cabinet papers. And if perchance you want to go back and look at one from 6 months ago, touch of a finger on the keyboard, and you scroll down and you're there. What efficiency. Trinidad and Tobago's cabinet is now paperless. And while we are taking these giant steps to take the country forward, the other side, the alternative to the PNM, the best choice, the alternative is laptop for school children, a program that has been deemed to have been a failure. A failure. The only thing that came out of that program was that the supplier of laptops became very rich. You know, they come back now and putting that in manifesto and telling you that they're going to go back and do it again. While we are talking about digitizing the country and e-identity so that you can be followed throughout the country wherever you are and you can follow the systems, and therefore if the government has to provide help to any citizen, you don't have to spend 3 weeks trying to find out if it's the right person, the real person, or the honest person, because you have an e-identity. Only you have that. And the system knows you there. So you can't go by health and get one, and then go by agriculture and get another one, and go by some. Once you go and you get it, it's already recorded that you're there. So it's very, very simple and straightforward to go forward, because that element of honesty and honor system that you're relying on now, I can tell you now, I have already been informed that salary grant you've been giving out, almost 4,000 persons have lied on the forms and got the grants twice. Yeah. But that shouldn't surprise you. This is Trinidad. And to prevent that, we try to prevent it. I mean, only about that number. But if we didn't do that, it could have been 14,000. So we very slowly had to go through the forms and check and double check and cross check. And while that is going on, you're slowing down the relief that is being going on and that's being sent out. And they're arguing that it's taking so long to come, but we have to check it. But if the whole system was digitized, it would have been so easy. You're a public official. You retire. I know so many public persons who came to me, they worked in the public service. When they retire, they can't get the gratuity, they can't get the pension, because those same filing cabinets, those same files, those same workers who come out to work and lose the file or take 2 months to do tomorrow what can be done today, and there are people sometimes years, they can't get their gratuity or even their pension, because all they will tell you when you go to the office is the system. No face, no name, no address, just system. All of that will disappear once we digitize the country's records and conduct our business based on records. All those people who are opposing these systems, when you go to America, they fall in line, you know. They fall in line. You go anywhere in America and you want to buy a property or you have bought a property, that property is uniquely identified. It has a history. It has a tax record. And you could go in the public record and look and see who owns it and what the tax is and whether it was paid. All of that is available. That is available to us here in Trinidad and Tobago now. And put us in the government on August 10th and you're going to get it in short order. You know, when we were in the government and Patrick Manning was the Prime Minister, and we put a proposal forward and our opponents say all kinds of ridiculous things, and we said, but how they could say that? That is not true, that is so stupid. And he used to say, well, they had to say something. And that is still so, you know. So we have an election, and the opposition has to put out a manifesto. They call it a plan. Because that leader, that opposition, she likes plans, and she always has some plan for something. Usually never, not up to any good, but it's a plan. And the plan that she has, she realizes that, as I realize, that the issue in front of the government of Trinidad and Tobago today, any government, is an issue to do with revenues and expenditure. Because the country's financial situation is not very strong. Given where we have gone in terms of the quality of life and the government's requirement to fund that standard of living, there are serious financial constraints, and she knows that. She acknowledges that. So you know what she said? Contrary to what we have done, where we have said we would look for additional revenues where additional revenues can be found. We found additional revenues by saying to the oil and gas companies, the arrangements for sharing the proceeds of the energy sector are not fair. And we want them reopened and rediscussed. We're not fighting, we're talking. They say, oh, we're going to crash the energy sector and nobody will invest in this country. We said no. As a sovereign nation, we could talk to international companies who are working within our border, and we did just that. And I led that charge as Prime Minister to Houston, to London, to Australia, and I talked to the board in the boardroom of all these companies. The end result of that is that we received billions of dollars more in cash payments from those companies. But more importantly, we've changed the nature of the equations that determine how you share the profits going forward. These are serious, important changes for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So as we stay in the business as we must, as we stay in the energy business, the oil business, the gas business in particular, we want a better arrangement. And we have got a better arrangement. From Shell, from BP, and of course, BHP is doing serious work in this country, and they kept on doing it, even when they pulled their stakes up elsewhere in the world. But you know how they can deal with revenues? They're going to tap into the cash reserves at the UTC and the NIB. Let me repeat that for those of you who have not heard or seen that. The opposition leader has put out a document where she has spoken about tapping into the cash reserves and mobilizing the cash reserves of the NIB and UTC. Let us start here. The money at UTC are your private savings. I don't know what role the government has or any access or what plan they have so they could tap into and mobilize UTC cash reserves. The only way the UTC reserves could be made available to government is if government tries to raise a bond and UTC decide to buy some of those bonds, not too much, because UTC has to be very careful. It may buy some bonds. But you can't come and tell the country that the way you will treat with the country's financial situation is to tap into the cash reserves of UTC. And NIB is your pension that you've been contributing to. And they invest very frugally around and very carefully too, because their investment have to pay to earn a dividend. So that those of you who are at work now, when you retire, there will be an NIB there with an NIS system that could pay your pension. Suppose you put God out your thoughts and let the UNC come into office and go and play fast and loose with the NIB and the UTC. UTC has over 800,000 accounts, mainly of little people's savings. You want the UNC to be tapping in to the UTC cash reserves? You want the people who just turn a blind eye to the fact that $1 billion being investigated by the police, and what they're asking for is that you put them above the law. That's what Moonlal is asking for. Put me above the law. And therefore, when the police gets information or evidence about this matter, the police must turn a blind eye. Because if the police doesn't turn a blind eye to the $1 billion of investigation that is needed, you can start a ball like a stuck pig, even though the papers and the police commissioner confirm that they have solid evidence of bid rigging. The police confirm that. But Moonlal is telling you, okay, you know, you can't connect me to that. So therefore, turn the face away. Because, you know, suddenly, a minister of government is not responsible for his or her department. So I said that he was responsible as minister for what took place in the Ministry of Housing under HDC, buying a piece of land for $120 million more than it was valued for. He sued me, or so he says, right? Because I have said the minister is responsible. Well, every minister in my government was responsible for what went on in their portfolio. Every single one of them. You are responsible. The nature of the responsibility is different. In Japan, when a plane crashed, the Minister of Transport has resigned. Because he takes responsibility. In Trinidad and Tobago, when you get involved in the arrangement yourself, you're even more responsible. But they're telling you, put us above the law. And if that is not done, and you find out that the police is investigating those matters, then you nasty the country name by saying that we are like Venezuela. And the Prime Minister is like Maduro. And we're going to lock up MPs and lock up judges. That's what the country come to. That is their behavior. Be out there with a drum and a gong, nasty in the country name. Never have a good thing to say about this place. Never have anything to support. I ask you tonight again, I've been asking you all along, you tell me one thing that is going on in Trinidad and Tobago today that the UNC supports. And now you're being warned. You're being warned that if they get back into government, they will repeal all the laws passed by Faris Al-Rawi. Well, people, Faris Al-Rawi has passed no law in the parliament. It is the government of Trinidad and Tobago with the majority has passed in the parliament for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, all of those laws. And when the people who created Section 34 tells you that they're going to do something, don't doubt them, they will do it. Because they've done it before. We could never have believed that a government would have gone to the parliament and pass a law to allow their friends to escape the courthouse by the statute passed in the parliament. Opposition, independence, duped, given commitments that meant nothing. And the next thing you know, we wake up one morning and hear that they passed something, they passed, pull out clause 34 and pass it into law and then lie about it. But now they tell you up front, you have been warned. You have been warned that they are going to interfere with your UTC accounts to try and fund government largesse. Them just borrow to thief. You have been warned that they will interfere with the NIB in trying in their capricious way to fund government programs. You have been warned that they will devalue the currency. That is the advice that we got when we came in 2015, rather than say, stand up there firm, be strong, and make ideas that will not put pressure on the poorest of the poor in this country. They are telling you now that they will devalue the currency. When they devalue the currency, they become individually more rich because they have owned and they have US dollars. So when they devalue the currency, they are richer and they can buy even more property. Because everything in the country becomes easier for them to buy and harder for others to buy. And of course, when they abandon and repeal the laws passed under this administration, they could still hide property that you will never know they have. And they're asking you to vote for that. That's what they're asking you to vote for. Look at the people that they put up as candidates. Some of them not even waiting until they get into government to have criminal records. They're coming in with it. I want to say to you tonight, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, especially the young people, because it is your future that's at stake here. For those of us, the adults, we've had our time, we've had our share. It is your future that's at stake. This country has been good to me and my generations. I want it to be good to you. If you are a person in this country under 40 years old, I'm talking to you. Be very careful who you put the affairs of this state, into whose hand you put it. Because there are some mistakes that are easy to make. And when you make them, you might not be able to correct them. There's nobody in this lineup in 2020 under this PNM government of the 40 candidates under my leadership, not one of them has ventured to raise with me any deal making of any kind. Not one of them, man, woman, or child. And when a prime minister shares the stage with people like this, you must do so knowing that nobody's holding any secret for you. I read in the papers, confirmed by the Commissioner of Police, because it's police documents that end up in the papers, an advisor to the Prime Minister, the last Prime Minister, is among persons who have questions to answer with the police. I'm not surprised, because that individual I know very well. And when I saw the circumstances of the person's progress, I knew it could only end badly. When I was in the opposition, I went to a Commonwealth Parliamentary session in London for about a week. And while I was at the CPA, there was this little flunky whose job it was to show me around and walk in front of you and open the door and literally make sure you don't get lost, because these places are quite large and the route between, it's a very useful service. Turns out that he was from Trinidad. So, very friendly immediately, because, you know, once we leave home, you know, we get together very well. In here, we want a cat and dog. But the fellow was there, a lower level functionary in the CP, Commonwealth Secretary General's office there. A couple of years later, the government of Trinidad and Tobago is Mrs. Kamala Prasad Biseswa. She too goes to London. And she comes back with this fella in tow as an advisor to the Prime Minister. I don't know what advice he could give any Prime Minister, but she brought him here in the Prime Minister's office as advisor to the Prime Minister. Within a matter of months, he was made senior advisor to the Prime Minister. So he gets more money. I've been to the office of the Prime Minister a couple of times on state business, and he's there in the room with the Prime Minister, and I'm still amazed that some people could be so lucky. As soon as the government lost the election, he bolted for the furthest place. He wanted to go to Antarctica, but there was no community down there, no housing down there. So he ended up in Australia or somewhere down there. And I'm now seeing his name calling and allegations of bagmanism, and then I understood what went on. You understand? I now understand what went on in the Prime Minister's office. So I could say tonight to Mrs. Khamla Prasad Bissessa, there's nobody in this government that I lead, which is coming to an end very soon before the election day, August 10th, to be reassigned. There's nobody in this government who can hold themselves out to be bagman for this Prime Minister. None, nobody. And the way they are behaving, nobody is taking responsibility for what has happened. You know what that means? If they get the opportunity, they will do it again. They will do it again. I have two advisors in my office as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. One is one of the gentlemen who was involved in building Point Lisas, who went abroad on similar scope. And I literally twisted his arm to come back to Trinidad and Tobago. Today he is Deputy Chairman of NIDCO and is doing yeoman service. Today we went down to Moruga to turn the sod for a project which was languishing. And NIDCO, once again, NIDCO has come to the fore and has put that project on an even keel and is underway in Moruga today. I have an advisor of that quality in the office of the Prime Minister. The other advisor I have an advisor on agriculture. I'm the only Prime Minister who has or ever had an advisor on agriculture in the Prime Minister's office. Dr. John Allen, again, who I twisted his arm, took him out of the university in Florida and brought him here. Very experienced person who is providing guidance to what we intend to do. Not just digitizing the country, but making giant steps in agriculture. But other people's advisor running from the police because they have not kept faith with the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I will tell you, these things will happen by accident. My grandmother always taught me, and it goes for the people of Trinidad and Tobago too, how you make your bed, how thou shalt lie on it. You make your bed hard, you will lie on it. If you are careless or irresponsible, and you allow that bunch of people to come back into government, having not even acknowledged what has gone wrong before, you will be doing it with your eyes wide open. Because you cannot say that you do not know what they are responsible for and what they intend to do. You want a devaluation? Vote them into office. You want them to interfere with the NIB money? Vote them into office. You want them to repeal the laws to protect you against white-collar crime, which was rampant in this country? Vote them into office. You want to never contribute to your community by making any contribution in the form of land and building taxes? Vote them into office. And of course, you want COVID to kill you? Vote them into office. Because that's it. They're offering it on a platter. They're not hiding. This is what an election campaign is about. So when we say PNM is the right choice, we put to you a prospect of a better life, even in a difficult situation. One of the reasons why they're sure they're going to win the election, you know why they're so sure? Is because the PNM has rectified the Petrotrin problem. We could easily have tried not to rectify the Petrotrin problem. But let me explain to you what would have happened if we had not rectified the Petrotrin problem. August last year, when the country could not have paid or refinance a loan of 850 million US dollars. The country would have been downgraded. We'd have had difficulty borrowing money, and we would have had to devalue the currency. It's just, it's not magic, It's not magic. One thing leads to another. If the Minister of Finance had to step into the shoes of Petrotrim to service that loan, even to refinance it with a government guarantee, we'd have been downgraded. So, a responsible government avoided that and fixed the problem once and for all. We restructured Petrotrim. In the restructuring, I have no doubt that many people were inconvenienced. Some people were even hurt in the process. But sometimes when you engage your troops in battle to defend the nation, some soldiers fall in the battle. But there's honor in patriotism. Ladies and gentlemen, the people who left Petrotrim during that restructuring, not one of them went away without a handshake in cash equivalent to their length of service. Permanent and temporary workers. Depending on your length of service, you got millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some people were close to the retirement end, on that end of the scale going towards retirement, they got the best because you were being paid by length of service. If you had a short service, it means that you were on the young side and you could look elsewhere to find a job as you go through life. There are very few places in the world and instances where the job you start out with is the only job you ever had. My first job is a long way from where I am now. My first job was packing sweet drink in a case in the juicy factory. And even before that, I worked for $7 a day planting grass on Hope Farm. And then I taught school in Roxborough and in Arima. I worked as a fisheries officer for a while. I worked at the university as a junior. I ended up as head of department. And eventually, I ended up as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So this thing about if you ever got displaced from a job, it's a calamity. It's fed by those who want to use you and to get you to be disturbed all day, all night, and even to vote unwisely. And having restructured Petrotrim, we've moved the needle from a loss, a guaranteed loss of $2 billion a year, to a situation where the subsidiary company that we created in the restructuring heritage is today selling oil, which is what the company was supposed to be doing in the first place, and making a profit on every barrel of oil. And in his first year, was able to declare profits of $1 billion, having paid all his taxes and providing employment for over 800 people. Which of those two companies you prefer to have? The one that you have to pay money into to lose $2 billion a year? Or the one that you put to work, look for oil, find oil, sell oil, and make a profit to pay for the schools and the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, and the public servants? Which one? Which one do you prefer to have? And even as we restructured the company, we created another company as a subsidiary to make sure that you get your fuel supply, and we sell fuel to the region. And even there, this undermining UNC decided to lie on the company of Trinidad and Tobago and seeking in their political expectation to ask the Americans to put sanction on Trinidad and Tobago because we sold fuel to Venezuela, which is a lie. Because they felt that somehow that will work for them politically. You really believe, if they believe in you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and they deserve to be your leaders, that they will do a lie like that, put it in Reuters, and come here and beating like a road march every day, asking the Americans, writing the Americans, asking them to put sanctions on Trinidad and Tobago? And when the Americans didn't take them on with that, they go on, well listen, if you're not going to put sanctions on the whole country, put sanctions on Rowley and Stuart Young and Moses. That's what they have done. And why are you surprised? We got the Australian government, through the involvement and initiative of the Australian Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, to help us to buy 4 vessels, 2 ferries and 2 offshore patrol vessels. You know what the UNC did? Official UNC action. They wrote the Australian opposition and sought to incite them against the Australian government for having helped us to buy those 2 ferries. And when that did not work, they wrote the Australian Attorney General an official complaint coming from the official opposition in Trinidad and Tobago without an iota or a shred of evidence, saying that they have concerns that the deal involves corrupt practice. That is the UNC's contribution to our development. And now there's a general election, and they want you to vote for them, to put them in government. And as for the Prime Minister of the last Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, I go back to my grandmother again. Show me a companion, I will tell you your character. Look at them, all of them, right? Have questions to answer. And the place they want to go, all of a sudden, they want to go to a fete, they want to go to a Brahmin, they want to go to a Lime, they want to go to Parliament. Yeah. Imagine Jack Warner want to go to Parliament. Yeah. Jack Warner. One of the first things I did as a opposition leader, when Kamala Persad-Bissessar appointed Jack Warner minister in a government in Trinidad and Tobago, I said, you have made a mistake. Do not put Jack Warner near public business. He's going to embarrass this country. So say, so done. And even as 7 years fighting extradition, coming to tell you how to run the country. Every Friday writing some stupidness about how the country should be run, as if I would take advice from Jack Warner. And then he gone to the polls now. Well, I want to see the people of Lopino Bonnet take one of the votes and put it next to Jack Warner's name. Had to be a family or a friend of his. Because family and friends, I mean, we can't argue with that. You know? But ladies and gentlemen, these are difficult times. These are dangerous times. We still are in a pandemic. And it will take 14 days to capsize everything that we have done. They open the border and try to please their friends outside, or inside for that matter. And the same way you've been seeing drip by drip of people coming in here bringing the virus, let them be irresponsible. You know, a public servant came to the fore in Trinidad and Tobago, and boy did he provide us with what was necessary. Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Roshan Parasar. Came to the fore leading his colleagues in our response in a pandemic. People don't take this for granted, please. Many countries with far more resources didn't do that or couldn't do that, but in Trinidad and Tobago, we had a health department led by a chief medical officer and a battery of others, and they came to the fore, and they gave us scientific guidance, and that guidance kept us safe. The UNC sued him how many times? 17 times they sued the health department, sued the chief medical officer. 17 times because they love courthouse. right? Instead of standing with the rest of the country fighting the virus, it was too much for them to say, we will stand with the government as we fight this virus together. No, courthouse, courthouse, courthouse. When you have no argument outside in the political arena, you go to the courthouse. And many times in San Fernando, love courthouse in San Fernando. And as fast as they lose, the state pay state lawyers millions to defend every action, and whenever they win, you're going to pay them millions. That's how they see the country. And when we ask, where is your patriotism, they get vexed. They are unpatriotic. They are about themselves. And they have no interest in you, your children, or your children's future. All they're concerned about is getting rich. Getting rich. Well, all of us can be rich. But when they get rich and the police looking for you, don't cry. Don't cry. I've been in public life now for 40 years. And I told them already and I tell them again. Any policeman come to my door, they come to Lime, because I have plenty of police friends, or they come to ask about you. 40 years I've been in public life. I was agriculture minister in this country, in charge of lands, and I defy anybody in this country to truthfully come forward and say that I mishandled or own 1 inch of state land. I was Minister of Planning and Development in this country. I defy any of them to come and say when I was planning minister, I grant approval to anybody who shouldn't have got approval. I am proud of my 4 decades of service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I didn't do it for me or to get rich. I did it in a way that my children can be proud of me. And by my children, I mean all the children of Trinidad and Tobago. So tonight, I hear them calling. They asked for observers to come to observe the elections. I had no problem with that. I asked the Commonwealth, and I asked the Secretary General of the CARICOM to send observers, because we have no problem with observers. In fact, if the observers could come or could have come, we would have been very happy, because we would like to have seen the aid that they would have given us for elections. Because our Election and Boundaries Commission is one of the few institutions that they didn't manage to undermine, but they tried. They tried. When the commission appointed a senior manager, same the person who's there now, Mrs. Narcissus Scope, out of the blue, the UNC started to bad talk the woman and attack the woman, saying that she's Maxi Coffee's niece, and as a result of that, she must be removed from the... That is their behavior, you know. You know she's not Maxi Coffee's niece. They carry it on as an official complaint to the public, as though the government somehow makes the appointment. That appointment was made by the board of the commission. The commission itself made that appointment. We in this government, in this party, we had no idea who applied for the job, who was selected, until it was announced that a new person was in charge there. But the UNC not so. And now they're talking about if observers don't come, it's my fault. And with her outer placeness, I must show her the letter that the Commonwealth replied, saying that they can't afford to send people here for 14 days quarantine. Well, I'm showing nobody any letter. I'm telling you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, that the Commonwealth told us that it is too expensive for them to undertake that mission, and so therefore they will take a pass on it. And I know that you will accept that from a Prime Minister who always tells you the truth. The CARICOM is still trying to put a team together. They're having difficulty putting a team together for more reasons than one. I don't know what they will come up with, even if we try to modify our quarantine arrangements. I don't know, but they're working on it. And if they do get through, we'll try to cooperate with them if it is reasonable, because nobody is coming in here and run around this country having come from outside. Nobody is coming in here under any guise of anything. and go run around among the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You are my responsibility. You are my first responsibility, and I will protect you. So if it can be done, it will be done. And observers or no observers, we expect that we will conduct election as we normally do in Trinidad and Tobago, as a disciplined people. And we'll go to the polls. We'll vote for who we want freely and fairly, without fear. And at the end of the day, when the votes are counted, we of the PNM, having conducted our business and ourselves in the way that we always do, having managed the affairs in this difficult situation in the way that we have done, having held out to you the prospects for a future which will be even brighter after we come out of these dark days, we know that you know the difference between good, bad, and indifferent. You know that difference. And today, that difference is picking out the symbol of the Balize of the People's National Movement. Our screening committee selected a team of people, a good chunk of experience in government and in the matters of state, a good chunk of people who have experience elsewhere, and a good chunk of young people who are coming into public life now, like Brian Manning and, of course, Daniel Duki, people like that. We have a balanced slate, representative of the government, of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. You look at our slate and you see across the board a representation of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago taking responsibility. And if it was easy, any of them could have done it. They had the opportunity to do it. They had the opportunity to do it. They did two things. They spend and spend and spend and bankrupted the country. Today, as we take issue with rectifying the state sector, Petrotrin, Caribbean Airlines, NGC, putting them in a position for a strong future. Our foot in the energy sector now is stronger and firmer with heritage. Caribbean Airlines, notwithstanding the COVID, was on a strong footing going forward, declaring a profit. And NGC that they took into bankruptcy, we negotiated new arrangements to put the NGC back on profitability. That's what we do. That's what we did. That's what we are doing. That's what we will do. So when you go to the polls, you have a choice. That this responsible approach to governance, this clearing of a path for the young people of Trinidad and Tobago will continue on August 11th. Or you could gamble with those who don't want casinos regulated. Gamble, add the country to it. Add the country to the chips. But I know that you are responsible people. I know that you are concerned about our country. I know that you know that sometimes when it's difficult, you just have to buckle down. And the rewards are greater. The harder the victory, the harder the fight, the sweeter the victory. We are going to come out of this. We're going to come out of all of this, the economic, the crime, the COVID. We're going to come out of it with our people intact, and we'll step forward with boundless faith in our destiny. So on August 10th, it might even be the day when the rains come, because we haven't had rain for the longest while. Our reservoirs are almost empty. But even if that's the day when the rains come out and vote in support of the future of Trinidad and Tobago. Come out and vote in support of good management as demonstrated by a responsible government of a party that has put its roots down here 65 years ago, and you're not gambling, you're just supporting and strengthening the nation. And when you do that, having cast your vote for the PNM candidate, our symbol is the Balize. Wherever you are in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a symbol there with the candidate and the standard bearer. Wherever you are going to vote, I ask you tonight to join forces with us, the progressive people of Trinidad and Tobago. And in 2020, if you never voted PNM before, this is the year that you vote PNM. Come out and vote for the PNM. And for those of you who have been voting for the PNM before, you're given an opportunity again to stand with the PNM because we have earned and deserve your support. So come August 10th, come out and vote. Come out and vote. Come out and vote. And when you vote on the day of August the 10th, on the night of August the 10th, when the votes are tallied, we must exhale in Trinidad and Tobago. We must know that we have escaped and dodged that bullet of the fear of losing to them. And we will all shout, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.